Hello, this is John with Coins, RPGs, and more. And today I'm here with a recommendation and kind of my personal reaction to an interesting system that I purchased recently. I purchased this, of course, with my own money for the purposes of understanding, just showed you what it was, understanding the game because I'd seen a lot about it and it looked really interesting and I wanted to see if it's something that I could recommend to people with a visual impairment. Plus, I wanted to see if it would be fun because everyone kept telling me it was going to be fun. So, without any more ado, let's get into it. Mork, Borg. I believe that's how it's supposed to be pronounced. I gotta tell you, this is a work of art. In fact, as a system, I would rate this more as a piece of art and artistic expression than I would as an RPG. That's not to say that it's a bad RPG, because it's not, but it without the art, without this, it doesn't. It's not as interesting to me. And I'll try to give you another example without. Here's one thing about this system, though, is it's a bit dark, to put it nicely. There's a lot of imagery that tends on the violent side. There's a lot of imagery that tends on the dark side. If you are sensitive to those sorts of things, if you don't want to deal with really darkness and edginess in your RPGs, I recommend against it. There are symbols that would make a very devout follower of any given religion, primarily of the Judeo-Christian variety, some serious pause. Keep that in mind when you're looking at this system. Now, if you're not bothered by that, or if you are not religious, then you can find some fun in it, I'm sure. I consider myself, I'm not unreligious. I have a personal faith, but that's personal, and we're not going to get into that. It doesn't bother me. I'm just going to put it that way. I understand that it is simply a game, and it is simply the artist's expression of how they want their stuff to be perceived. But here's where it gets interesting. So, the wind from the west, from the sundered land. Opening sentence. And already I'm getting some really evocative images in my brain. Because this isn't just a system. This isn't just, here's how to play grim, dark, OSR, D&D style games, whatever phrase you want to use. Here's how to do that. No, this is a setting. This is a campaign. This is a concept from start to finish. And if you follow the rules in this game, at the end of your game, you will burn this book. Here's the back cover, by the way. See some of that imagery I'm talking about? You will burn this book, and it's over. Because it tells you to do so when the end event of this campaign happens. Spoiler warning, it's about the end of the world. And if you play long enough in this campaign, the world will end and everyone will die. That's what I mean when I say it's pretty dark. It's a little bit, ooh, wow. If you're not ready for that, I don't recommend it. If you're sensitive to character death or NPC death or wretched things happening to good people, this is a setting and a concept that you will want to stay away from for your own personal well-being. I'm not judging you. I'm not telling you you're playing it wrong, because that's not my business, but just a recommendation. But if you're okay with those things, if you like a bit of grit and a bit of doomsday thought process in your games, and you don't mind this whole a concept of let's try to fight until the very end, until our dying breath, to try to either save the world, knowing we'll probably fail, or to try to get as much stuff or my biggest pile of magic and treasures you can before the end inevitably takes you, then this is for you. If you like that sort of that dark, grim look at things where there are no good guys because the good guys have already gone. The people that were good in this world are gone. They don't exist anymore. It's only the neutral people, the people with their heads in the sand pretending that everything is normal, and the bad people who want to just get as much as they can and spread as much pain as they can before the end comes. Um, so I personally would love to play in this game as someone who believes they can change things, believes they can change the world, because I love that concept of redemption, not only of a person, but redemption of a world, redemption of a universe. But that's me. That's what I like. This There are a lot of fun rules in this. The weapons, it's a departure from my usual thing. Usually, I like things that are D6 -1 for light weapons. Excuse me, D6 for medium weapons and D6 +1 for heavy weapons. This has different die types for different weapons, using everything from the D4 to the D10. And it's fine, actually. I like the way they did it here because it makes sense, and every once in a while it's good to try different things, even though I have a preferred method of doing things. Always broaden your horizons. Never stick with the same thing all the time, even as a game master or as a player, because you're missing part of the game when you do that. One thing that's really awesome about this system is they incorporate the setting into the character classes. And by that, what I mean is all of your character's abilities are given names that are evocative to the setting itself. But more importantly, even beyond that, you can actually play this game without classes. If you don't like classes for your characters, if you just want to play, you can just play. The character creation is done up in such a way that all you're doing is rolling dice on a couple of tables to decide what your character carries, what physical objects they have, and whatever your character's carrying, that's what you do. That's what you bring to the table. I think it's a neat concept. I haven't read too many games in the past that do this, and I'm glad to have read it. I think it's neat. I'm not sure I'm going to use it myself, but I like reading about it. So this is a game that I have not actually played. I've read it, I've enjoyed it, I've watched another group of people play it over the internet. That was a lot of fun, but I have not personally played it. So maybe my experience around the table would be much different. But I enjoy the concepts behind this system. One thing I really like, and I am going to use in my home game, is you need to have edible food and water in order to be able to regain hit points when you rest. If you don't have fresh water and edible food, and enough of it, you won't regain hit points. And that's the primary means that they have for restoring your character's health. There's no healing potions necessarily. I think they had a few potions in here, but nothing that really kind of jumped out at me as magical, and you're back kind of stuff. You have to have food and water. I want to use this in my games because this makes rations make sense. Instead of being something that DMs tax you with and say you have to have it because I said so, there's an in-game reason why you want your character to have rations, or you want your character to you know, you see that apple tree in the wild. Why is there an apple tree in the wild? But who cares? I'm picking all the apples now, because you want that food, because you want to regain that health. It gives you an actual reason to do that, and I love that. I'm totally stealing that. Sorry, dude, the author of this game. I am going to steal your rule, but to be fair, I'm it's your rule. I'm not saying it. I'm not saying I came up with it. It's yours. It's a neat idea, and I love it. Um, and I'm going to use that in my home game, and I'm going to use that with other game systems too as a concept, because I had not really thought of it that way before, and I think it makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense. Now, here's something though. I am going to say something negative about this book, and that's kind of this. This is part of the weapons table. This shows you the damage type or damage die that each one of these weapons does. All right? It's artistic. It's very artistic, and that's why I say this is a great work of art. But for a person with a visual impairment, all these different typesets and ways of expressing things, especially on a yellow background, is really hard. If I was going to seriously use this as it is, I'd have to rewrite a lot of information onto my own note cards and almost have everything rewritten just for me so that I can be able to read it comfortably during game time. And that's a little frustrating for me. So I'm not sure I'll ever actually run this system. I would love to play in it. I think it'd be a lot of fun. But I don't think I'd run it because it would be a lot of work for me to be able to take all this stuff and translate it to a method that I can read it easily. And I've looked online. So far, I haven't found a version of these rules that's just plain text. If there is one out there and it's legal for me to get, I will happily do so. I'd pay more money to the author to have this book again, but in standard text format with just the pictures on the side, because I love the art. Do not get me wrong. I think it's very evocative. It sets the tone perfectly, but I can't read it. And here's another example. Pink text. White text on a pink background. For someone with normal vision, I'm sure that while this is a little jarring, it's not really a problem. Color blindness. Someone with a disability like mine, I really have to concentrate hard to be able to read pink text on a white background. And I'm sure that other people with disabilities similar to mine are having the same struggle. It's neat. It's fun. I get it. And I appreciate what the authors did, because it really changes the dynamic of the game when you're reading it. It makes you really think about what's going on. I haven't thought about a system so hard while reading it as I had with this one. And I like it. But it's small print, pink letters on a white background. That's the armor table. And that's all the vital rules that I need on that armor table. And I can't read them without a magnifier and concentration. I don't know what else to say. I have the PDF. Actually, yeah, I bought the PDF, so I'll be able to enlarge it to read on the PDF. But the physical book is less useful for me. We're at 14 minutes. Okay, so that's kind of a lot of how I feel about this system. There's a lot here. I bought the supplement as well, which is full of all the extra rules that they put on their website, and there's a lot here, and it's also fantastic. From theme and concept and execution of theme and concept in a consistent manner with that theme and concept, this is a 10 out of 10. an amazing setting with a system that works within that setting and does awesome stuff. From a person with a visual impairment standpoint, I cannot recommend this book unless you're willing to take the time and the effort to go over it with a manual magnifier and read things slowly, or put it into a PDF program and enlarge the PDF until you can read it with your own eyes, because I don't think any screen reader created by humans can actually read this in a way that makes sense to someone who's blind. I'm sorry, but that's maybe someone who is totally blind would like to chime in. I'd love to hear your input. If you have experience with this system, if you can tell me that actually your screen reader does work for this, I'd love to know, because that would make me feel a lot better about wanting to support this system. Um, Either way, though, it is a great system. I'm not trying to knock it down too much, because I understand that it was designed as a work of art just as much as it was designed as an RPG system. And from a work of art standpoint, it is a chef's kiss. The rules in here are cool. That resting rule is really neat. I didn't go into it in detail because it is really cool, and I actually do want you to read that rule in the book, but look for it. It's worth it. Um, the way that they make the end of the world come about using verses to a song and harkening back to a lot of heavy metal, but also a lot of poetry. I love that. It speaks to the artist in me, and I can see the right group having a blast with this system. So, highly recommended if you are artistically minded and you are willing to put in the work to make this system feasible for you. Highly recommended. It'll be a great time. Have a short campaign and dig into the grim and the dark and the icky as much as you want. It's great for that. So, mixed bag as far as my recommendation goes, but it's on the shelf for me, and I will reference it, and I will mine it for ideas and how to make my own games better and more evocative. I just don't think I'll run it myself. Thank you for your time. I hope some of this was useful to you, and I hope you all have a wonderful day. Peace be with you, always.